Once upon a time, in a world where glamour and grit collided, there lived a woman whose life was as dramatic and dazzling as the silver screen itself. Her name was Gina Lollobrigida, and her story is one of beauty, rebellion, and an unyielding spirit that refused to be tamed. Humphrey Bogart, the legendary actor, once quipped that Gina made Marilyn Monroe look like Shirley Temple. But Gina's life was no fairy tale. It was a whirlwind of passion, power, and peril, with enough twists to rival the most gripping Hollywood scripts. On a sweltering July day in 1927, Gina burst into the world in a small Italian town, her cries echoing through the modest home of her middle-class family. The midwife, cradling the newborn, uttered a prophecy that would prove eerily accurate. This one will be heard of. Little did anyone know just how far her voice and her legend would carry. From the start, Gina was a force to be reckoned with. Her father, a stern traditionalist, forbade her from indulging in the sinful pleasures of the cinema. But Gina, ever the rebel, had other plans. She would sneak into theaters, hiding behind curtains, her wide eyes glued to the flickering images of love and longing on the screen. She even charmed the projectionist into giving her snippets of the most tantalizing scenes. It was as if she knew, deep down, that her destiny was written in those reels of film. But fate had a cruel twist in store. World War II erupted, and Gina's idyllic childhood was shattered. German soldiers stormed her town, forcing her family to flee with nothing but the clothes on their backs. They slept under the stars, scavenged for scraps, and navigated a landscape littered with hidden mines. As an art prodigy, Gina even sketched portraits of Patsies in exchange for food. Yet, amid the chaos, a glimmer of hope emerged. Gina won a singing scholarship to a prestigious art school. But even this opportunity came with its own set of challenges. In just 6 months, Gina cycled through 6 different singing instructors. The reason? Each one fell hopelessly in love with her. At 19, Gina was already a vision of beauty and charm, but she quickly learned that her allure was both a gift and a curse. Men were drawn to her like moths to a flame, but once captivated, they refused to let her go. It was a lesson she would carry with her for the rest of her life. Then, on a fateful New Year's Eve in 1947, Gina's world shifted once more. She met Milko Skofic, a dashing doctor 7 years her senior. For the first time, it was Gina who found herself smitten. She returned home that night and scribbled in her diary about her dreams of marrying him. 2 years later, they did just that. But their love story was far from simple. Gina was a struggling actress, while Milko was a successful physician. Their paths were mismatched, but their hearts were aligned. At least for a time. Gina's early career was a roller coaster of highs and lows. Her first leading role in Pagliacci was a critical disaster, with reviewers lambasting her acting while begrudgingly praising her beauty. But Gina was no mere pretty face. She was determined to prove herself. Her husband, however, was less convinced. Milko urged her to abandon acting, doubting she would ever succeed. His lack of faith only fueled Gina's fire. She was ready to take on the world, and Hollywood came calling. Enter Howard Hughes, the enigmatic billionaire with a reputation for seducing starlets. When Hughes saw a photo of Gina in a bikini, he was instantly smitten. He offered her a screen test in Hollywood, promising to fly both her and Milko to Los Angeles. But Hughes, ever the schemer, reneged at the last minute, providing only one ticket. Gina faced an impossible choice: stay with her husband or chase her dreams in the lion's den. Milko surprisingly encouraged her to go. He trusted her, even if he didn't trust Hughes. And so, Gina embarked on a journey that would test her resolve in ways she never imagined. Upon arriving in Los Angeles, she was whisked away to a lavish hotel suite, complete with staff and guards. Not to protect her, but to keep her under Hughes's control. He blocked her calls, monitored her movements, and made it clear that her career depended on her submission to his advances. But Gina was no damsel in distress. She saw through Hughes' manipulations and refused to play his game. When he demanded she divorce Milko, she countered with an audacious challenge. She would consider his proposals if he gave up his fortune. Hughes, of course, refused. Gina's defiance only grew stronger. She rejected him not out of loyalty to her husband, but because she refused to be bought. As the days turned into weeks, Gina's resolve hardened. She knew she couldn't stay trapped in Hughes's gilded cage forever. But just as she began to plot her escape, Hughes revealed one final sinister twist. He had no intention of letting her go without a fight. The battle of wills between the starlet and the tycoon was far from over, and Gina would need every ounce of her cunning and courage to break free and claim her destiny. Howard Hughes, the infamous tycoon, had tried to ensnare her in his web, but Gina was no ordinary starlet. She was a force of nature, and even Hughes, with all his power and wealth, underestimated her. Like so many actresses before her, Gina found herself at the mercy of Hughes's manipulations, but not in the way one might expect. On the eve of her departure from Hollywood, Hughes threw her a lavish farewell party. The champagne flowed freely, and Gina, already struggling with English, found herself tipsy and vulnerable. It was then that Hughes presented her with a contract, assuring her it was nothing more than a formality. Trusting his word, she signed it. But Gina had unwittingly made a deal with the devil. The contract bound her to Hughes, stipulating that she could only work with him in America. For years, he stifled her career, refusing to offer her roles while blocking others from doing so. It was a cruel game, one designed to punish her for rejecting his advances and honoring her marriage. But Hughes had no idea who he was up against. Gina was not one to bow to tyranny. She was a fighter, and she had a plan. Discovering a loophole in the contract, Gina realized she could star in American films as long as they were produced outside the United States. It was a small victory, but it was enough to keep her career alive. And then, in 1953, the tides turned in her favor. Her role in Pun, Amore e Fantasia, earned her critical acclaim and a BAFTA nomination. That same year, she starred alongside Humphrey Bogart and Jennifer Jones in Beat the Devil, proving that she didn't need to compromise her integrity to succeed. Gina was a star on her own terms. But her rise to fame was no accident. Gina was a one-woman powerhouse, her own agent, publicist, makeup artist, and photo editor. Her husband, Milko Skofich, managed her career, but he lacked the industry connections of a typical manager. Gina relied on her own instincts and determination, and it paid off. She had always known she was special, and now the world knew it too. But with success came a growing ego, and Gina's fiery temperament began to make headlines. When she signed on to star in The Lady Without Camellias, Gina expected a meaningful role. Instead, she found herself cast as a talentless shopgirl who rises to fame solely because of her looks. The script was a slap in the face to Gina, who had spent years fighting to be seen as more than just a beautiful face. She demanded changes, but the producers refused. In a bold move, Gina walked off the set, sparking a legal battle that would make headlines. The producers sued her for 200 million lire for breach of contract, but Gina countersued, arguing that the film was an insult to Italian cinema. The public rallied behind her, and the courts ruled in her favor. The Lady Without Camellias flopped, and Gina emerged victorious. It was a testament to her unyielding spirit and her refusal to be silenced. But Gina's battles were far from over. In 1956, she faced Howard Hughes head-on with the release of Trapeze, her first American film. The movie was a declaration of independence, proof that Gina could star in any American film without Hughes' approval. It was a triumph, and Gina had finally outmaneuvered the man who had tried to control her. She had won the war, but the fight had taken its toll. Gina's beauty and charisma made her a target for powerful men, and Hughes was not the only one who pursued her. Prince Rainier III of Monaco, despite being married to Grace Kelly, boldly propositioned Gina in front of his wife. It was a shocking moment, but Gina, ever the class act, refused out of respect for both Kelly and herself. Her marriage to Milko, though unconventional, remained a source of stability in her chaotic life. While Hollywood marriages crumbled under the weight of scandal, Gina's endured, a testament to her loyalty and strength. Yet, the media was relentless, always searching for drama. Gina and Sophia Loren, both Italian beauties who rose from poverty to stardom, were constantly pitted against each other. Tabloids fabricated a rivalry, but the truth was far less sensational. Gina and Sophia had no feud. Instead, they played the press like a fiddle. Gina, in particular, had a knack for deflecting invasive questions, often pretending not to understand English when faced with provocative inquiries. But while Gina and Sophia shared a quiet camaraderie, Gina's encounters with other stars were not always so amicable. Her life was a series of battles, against tycoons, producers, and even princes. But Gina Lollobrigida was a warrior. As the years rolled on, Gina's star continued to rise, but the challenges never ceased. Each victory was met with new trials, and each triumph was shadowed by fresh adversaries. One of the most memorable moments in Gina's career came during a fashion showdown with Elizabeth Taylor. The two screen sirens found themselves at the same event, both dressed to the nines. Gina, ever the perfectionist, had spared no expense on her gown, a masterpiece of Italian design that hugged her curves and shimmered under the lights. But as she stepped onto the red carpet, she realized with a sinking feeling that Taylor was wearing an almost identical dress. The fashion faux pas was the talk of the town, and Gina was mortified. From that day forward, Gina vowed never to be caught off guard again. She began investing heavily in custom gowns, working closely with designers to ensure that her outfits were one of a kind. Her wardrobe became as legendary as her films, a testament to her impeccable taste and unyielding determination to stand out. Gina Lollobrigida's life was a tapestry of triumphs, scandals, and reinventions, each chapter more fascinating than the last. One of the most intriguing threads in this tapestry was her tumultuous relationship with Sean Connery, long before he became the iconic James Bond. When the two starred together in Woman of Straw, Connery was still a relative unknown, while Gina was already a global sensation. She knew her star power and wasn't shy about wielding it. By the time the cameras stopped rolling, Connery was so fed up with her diva antics that he vowed never to work with her again. The irony? Gina, ever the provocateur, declared she'd happily work with Connery again. No script required. Her boldness was both her charm and her curse, a trait that left many in Hollywood either enchanted or exasperated. Gina's fiery personality didn't just ruffle feathers on set. It also made her a magnet for lawsuits. Frustrated by critics who reduced her to nothing more than a beautiful face, she fought back with a vengeance. At one point, she was juggling an astonishing 10 lawsuits simultaneously, suing reviewers and publications that crossed the line. Yet, in a twist of fate, Gina found herself on the other side of the law in 1965. She discovered she couldn't access her jewelry, sparking fears of a massive theft. The truth was far more mundane, but no less infuriating. She owed thousands in state taxes. Gina was no tax evader, at least not intentionally. But the oversight landed her in hot water. After a tense ordeal, she resolved the issue and reclaimed her treasures, her fans none the wiser and no less adoring. To Italians, Gina wasn't just a star. She was the asterisk star. They called her Gina Nazionale, or the pride of Italy, and for good reason. She wasn't just a symbol of Italian beauty and talent. She was Italy. Her fame transcended cinema, and she often represented her country on the world stage, mingling with foreign dignitaries and cementing her status as a cultural icon. While countless Hollywood stars achieved fame and fortune, few could claim to be pseudo-ambassadors for their homeland. By the 1960s, Gina had amassed nearly 70 film and TV credits, working with legends like Frank Sinatra and Errol Flynn. To the outside world, her life seemed perfect. A thriving career, a loving marriage, a beautiful son, and all the trappings of fame and fortune. But behind the glittering facade, cracks were beginning to show. Gina and her husband, Milko Skelfic, had grown apart, their marriage a shell of what it once was. Yet, in a twist of irony, they remained legally bound until Italy legalized divorce in 1971. The moment the law changed, Gina and Milko were among the first to file, racing toward their freedom. Sadly, as her marriage unraveled, so too did her career. The roles dried up and the spotlight dimmed. But Gina wasn't one to wallow in the past. Instead, she reinvented herself, finding a second calling as a photojournalist. This wasn't some vanity project. Gina was good. Her star power and connections certainly helped her land opportunities to photograph icons like Paul Newman and Salvador Dali. But she wasn't content with fluff pieces. She wanted to make a mark. And she did just that in 1975 when she secured an interview with one of the most elusive figures of the 20th century, Fidel Castro. How she pulled it off remains a mystery, but Gina had a way of getting what she wanted. She wrote, directed, and produced the documentary Ritratto di Fidel, showcasing her work with the Cuban leader. Yet, as with everything in Gina's life, the achievement came with a side of scandal. Rumors swirled about a secret affair with Castro, though Gina dismissed them as baseless gossip. Her ability to navigate such controversies with grace only added to her legend. Gina's foray into photojournalism was just one of many reinventions. At 72, she set her sights on politics, running for the European Parliament in 1999. Though her star power couldn't secure her a seat, she remained undeterred. Politics, however, would have to wait. For now, Gina turned her attention to love, proving that even in her later years, she was as vibrant and unpredictable as ever. Blessed with beauty that captivated the world, she was cursed in love. Her romantic life a series of near misses and betrayals that would have broken a lesser spirit. My experience has been that, when I have found the right person, he has run away from me, she once confessed. I am too strong, too popular. Important men, they want to be the star. They don't want to be in your shadow. Yet, despite her struggles, Gina never stopped searching for love, even in the most unlikely of places. In October 2006, the world was stunned when Gina announced her engagement to Javier Rigau, a man 34 years her junior. But the real shock wasn't the age gap. It was the couple's claim that they had been secretly together since 1984, when they first met at a party in Monaco. The revelation sparked a media frenzy, with headlines dissecting every detail of their May-December romance. But just 2 months later, the fairy tale crumbled. Gina called off the engagement, blaming the relentless media scrutiny for the breakup. Javier is desperate, she lamented. Ever since we announced this wedding, he has been tormented with lies and slander. He can't take it anymore. The end of their relationship was tragic, but it was also a lie. The truth was far stranger than fiction. Gina and Rigau had not been secretly dating for 22 years, as they had claimed. In reality, their relationship had lasted only 2 years. They fabricated the decades-long romance in a misguided attempt to make their impending marriage seem more legitimate. But the deception didn't stop there. In 2013, Gina stumbled across marriage certificates that revealed an even more shocking betrayal. Rigau had married her in 2010, without her knowledge or consent. He had used a stand-in to impersonate her during a proxy wedding in Spain, claiming she had signed the paperwork to avoid media attention. Gina, however, insisted she had been conned. He arranged this marriage behind my back, she fumed, launching a legal battle that would expose even more scandalous secrets. The courtroom drama was a spectacle, with Gina and Rigau trading accusations. She claimed they had never shared a bed, let alone a romantic relationship, while he insisted they had been together in every way. The case took a devastating turn when Gina's former lawyer, Giulia Satani, sided with Rigau, testifying that Gina had knowingly signed the marriage documents. Gina accused Satani, Rigau, and others of conspiring against her, but the Spanish courts ruled in 2017 that the marriage was legitimate. It was a crushing blow, though Rigau was later charged with forgery. Despite the betrayal, Gina refused to let the ordeal dim her spirit. At 88, she found herself embroiled in yet another scandal, this time with Andrea Piazzolla, a 27-year-old assistant who became her constant companion. Piazzolla, whom Gina described as the best person in her life, quickly became the subject of gossip and speculation. Was he just an employee, or was he another boy toy in Gina's long line of doomed romances? The rumors intensified when it was revealed that Gina had gifted the Piazzolla and his family extravagant presents, including luxury properties and a Ferrari. She insisted she saw him as a son and had given the gifts willingly, but her generosity raised eyebrows and alarms. Her only child, Milko Skofic Jr., stepped in, petitioning Italian courts to assign a guardian to oversee Gina's finances and protect her from what he saw as exploitation. Gina, however, was furious. She accused her son of greed and betrayal, their already strained relationship deteriorating into a bitter public feud. The courts initially sided with Gina, ruling that she was of sound mind, but the victory was bittersweet. The pain of feeling betrayed by her own child cut deeper than any legal battle. Yet Gina's resilience never wavered. Even as her son launched another legal challenge in 2021, seeking to block her accounts and restrict her spending, she fought back with the same tenacity that had defined her career. In a final twist, the Supreme Court of Italy ruled that Gina, now in her 90s, needed a legal guardian to manage her affairs. It was a devastating blow, but Gina refused to surrender. At 95, she made one last bold move. running for the Italian Senate on a controversial platform that included leaving the European Union and NATO. Though she received just over 1% of the vote, her campaign was a testament to her indomitable spirit. Gina Lollobrigida, one of the last surviving stars of Hollywood's golden age, lived a life that defied convention. She was a trailblazer, a fighter, and a legend. On January 16, 2023, she took her final bow, passing away at the age of 95. True to form, she left the world on her own terms, her legacy as unforgettable as the woman herself. Gina Lollobrigida wasn't just a star, she was a force of nature, and her story will continue to captivate for generations to come. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Gina's life, please subscribe to the channel for more content like this.